Hi, this is Eldon McGraw with Riff It Up, and today our guest is Todd Karinen of many, many bands over your life. But tell us what your current band is and what your role is.
All right, so right now the current project is a band called A Rueful Noise. I kind of like to classify it as kind of a indie gloom rock kind of style band.
Cool. When did you guys start?
2021.
Okay. Tell me about the band members, a little bit about their background and their role in the band.
Yeah, sure thing. Guitar is Nicholas Mers. He's one of my oldest friends. We've been in, I think, 6 bands total together.
6, wow.
Yeah. And then on bass is Jennifer Toms. She was in a really cool band in Lansing called Scary Women.
Right.
And then, yeah, after that kind of ended, her and Nicholas started doing some duet stuff and during the pandemic, and kind of took off from there.
And you're the drummer, of course.
Yeah.
Scary Women, that was a great band.
They were.
I remember playing some gigs with them. I always enjoyed their performances.
Yeah.
So you guys got together. Now, were you right into writing and recording, or did you take a while? What was the process?
Well, Nicholas is both of them actually, I should say that right now. Both of them have stuff already written. They like to do their own stuff. Nicholas is, I think, put 1 or 2 albums out, singer-songwriter style stuff. Jenny, she writes a lot of stuff on her acoustic bass, and she's recorded songs. Okay. So they had not a lot already written, but they had enough that they could draw from. And then the way they write together, it's very natural, and there was a couple songs that we just put off on our new album that's coming out, and they wrote those while on vacation up in Beaver Island. So they can write together very easily. Yeah,
that's not always the case with some artists. It's nice to hear that they have that rapport together to write, and obviously it goes into the whole production in the studio.
It helps that they're married too. So.
Yeah, well, it doesn't help. Or maybe not, right? Let's talk about the studio, right? You've had tons of experience recording in the studio, but let's talk about the latest album and maybe your experience in the studio. What was different about this session compared to maybe other ones that you felt in your career?
Well, first of all, we recorded it in Jenny and Nicholas's basement.
Yep. Still a studio. That's what we call it, right?
It was great because that's our practice space. So number one, you get that home feel because it's literally their home. The other thing too is it always makes it easier when you're recording with somebody who you have a very great relationship. When we recorded the EP in 2022, that was with our friend Jeremy Porter and his drummer Gabriel. And that was great, and they're friends of ours, but it was weird working, I've never worked with them before.
Sure.
Whereas with the album, we brought in one of my old bandmates and one of my best friends, Jason Rodell, who's, is an amazing audio master.
Great engineer, great recording.
Things he does. Yeah. And so it just, having such a great friend who knows how to get the best out of you and knows how to work with others to get the best out of them, it makes it so much easier.
It does. I mean, it does push you if you have the right person producing, or at least have you worked? Was Jason a producer officially, or have you worked with a producer on any albums or recordings in your past?
That was the weird thing for me. When we recorded the EP, Jeremy Porter was much more of a producer. He would come in and he would give kind of little notes. And that was the first time I've ever dealt with anything like that. And I didn't have a problem with it. And it makes you want to elevate. You want to kind of not necessarily totally match their vision, because I'm a type of drummer that I don't want to completely give up control of everything. I'll take notes, and if I agree with it,
sure.
So I've never been in a true studio situation with a producer where they're like, no, I want you to play it this way.
Right. Producers are an interesting bunch because
I know they can be.
There's really no rules in some ways. They can be not totally in control, but a lot of control, or just suggesting a few things. or in your case, seems like a good middle ground.
Well, exactly, and that's the other thing too. Is like I said, I've never been in that kind of studio atmosphere where you've had a producer come in and they're trying to more force you towards their vision.
Yeah.
And that's the nice part about working with Jason was he wasn't going to force us to do anything that we didn't want, but he was going to make suggestions like, why not try this? And the other thing too was I've worked with a click kind of over the years in very minimal amounts,
Yeah.
and this time every song. But it also wasn't like a real kind of stickler type thing where you have to stick to the click. It was, you can let it ebb and flow a little bit, you just don't want to fall completely behind or be too far ahead.
So for our non-musical fans out there, what is a click? Explain that.
Yeah, so a click is basically you set the tempo, and we already knew the tempo's going in, and we actually practiced. So you can just, it's a metronome basically.
Right.
And you hear it in your ear, it goes along with the whatever track that you're recording with or the band.
Once you hear a click in your headphones, you never forget that in your life, do you?
Well, also it depends. The technology now, you can change what the click
That's
is.
true. That's true.
And
for years, it was the same type of click.
exactly.
Yeah.
The one that got me was I recently recorded a song for a friend of ours, Dave Baldwin, and he sent the track over drumless, but with the click. And the thing I was getting used to was the click on the one was different from the other one. So it was click, 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 click,
Right.
click, and you're, all right, it's trying to keep you on the one.
Now, when you guys went in the studio recorded it in your studio there, did you? How long did it take? I mean, was it a long process?
It was one of those situations where we got the drums done a couple of days,
Oh, okay.
and then everybody else, everybody has lives.
Yeah. Right,
So it was, I think we recorded it, I want to say it was either May to June or maybe March to June.
Okay.
But it was recorded over a long process.
Sure.
We weren't in a real hurry.
Right. Now let's transition a little bit into your live shows, right? You guys have obviously been playing live for a while.
Mm-hmm.
What's your live sound? Is it different than your records? I mean, what's your take on it, your vision?
Well, number one, it's the thing I like about it is because I'm not playing to a click.
Right,
So there's going to be
right.
plenty of times that I'm speeding up because of whatever mood I'm in.
Sure.
And so just trying to keep it more even keel. I like our live sound.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more, our album, it sounds great. And as I said, Jason got the best out of us.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of suggestions that he made and that the other members, that Nicholas and Jenny already knew that they wanted to add in. So you're not going to have all the effects, of course.
Right.
But you're going to have a good live sound. I think we're a good sounding rock band.
Yeah.
It's going to be full. We get lots of complaints that we're too loud.
Yeah.
But
You're the common denominator in all your bands of
yes,
the
I
loudness,
am.
by
Yes,
the way.
yes. But I actually play a lot more reserved in this band.
I've seen it, yeah.
And like we just did a show recently that it was a much more lower volume show. And that was nice
Did you
because
have your volume switch turned down on that drum?
well, no.
Okay.
I used rods.
Okay.
So I didn't use actual drumsticks.
Yeah.
So that forced me to kind of change my playing. And then Nicholas and Jenny, they had smaller amps and
Okay.
less effects. And it was just, we didn't want it full acoustic because we've done that too. That was fun too.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. We've done an acoustic set. This was just a low volume set, but it kind of forces you to think about a little bit more about your sound and how you're going to present it.
So you've been a veteran in this business for a long time, and what really motivates you now at this point to keep performing, keep recording? I mean, what is it that you wake
Spite.
up? Yeah, of course, that
No.
makes sense, knowing
No.
you all these years.
No, it's the joy of it.
What is the joy, though?
Well, if you ever watch any kind of music documentary, about any band or any scene, any genre, they all say the same thing. Well, you know, if I'm not having fun and it starts feeling like work, it might as well end.
Right.
And that's a major, you know, component of this. It's gotta feel, you gotta have fun with it.
Sure.
If you're not having fun, then I guess I don't understand it's not a job.
Right.
It's hard to make this your job.
Of course.
And especially at our age, we're not gonna make it our job.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that we can't go out and make music with our friends and do something cool and just have fun. That's what drives me.
Yeah.
I just want to be able to contribute something to the scene, and that is going to help propel it to make it better.
You told me you grew up in a small town in northern Michigan, Lake City, I believe, because I've vacationed there, so I'm really familiar with it. I remember one thing you told me I thought was really interesting, essentially living in mid-Michigan my whole life, is there was no music scene there when you were growing up, yet whenever you moved to Lansing, there was a scene. It just changed your life. Tell me a little of that perspective of like this small town guy, not that Lansing's a big town, but it's bigger than Lake City. Tell me that experience and how that affected you.
Well, because, when you go from a scene, or you go from a town, even the next town over, Cadillac, that's, at the time, it was, I think, 10,000 people. So it's probably more now. It's probably 12, 13. But at the time, it was all cover bands. And so there's the opportunity to perform, there's the opportunity to learn, there's the opportunity to have fun and play in a band with your friends, but you're not necessarily creating anything.
Right.
And that was the thing I was really looking forward to in Lansing, was getting down here, meeting new people, and then kind of seeing not only how they create, but how they interact with each other, and kind of, I guess when you are with a group of people, you can create something individually, but when you start creating with others, it gets all those influences. So to kind of see how others create with maybe, hey, this guy's into something different, and kind of see what that kind of brings about. That's exciting.
That is exciting. You also have some really cool experience playing, in little mini tours in your life, whether, different bands. As an indie artist, how fun is that? I'm assuming it's a lot of fun, but what's the preparation it takes for an indie band to do these little mini tours? Give us some behind the scenes information.
Well, I actually got A Rueful Noise a few shows out of state, and we're gonna be playing in early summer. And that's exciting to me, but it's so hard. If you're not using a booking company, one of the most frustrating things is sending out emails or getting a hold of venues or bookers on any social media, platform, or even just email, and no response. It's very frustrating, and I understand why. I get it. I've booked shows in the past, and you're not going to catch them all, especially if you're really busy or you're in a really popular venue.
Right.
But it's also very frustrating, especially being a smaller independent artist, that you're trying to do something and you're not getting the feedback you need to be able to move on.
Because you got to time it out, right?
Exactly.
Everything's timed because you got a tight budget, I'm assuming.
The budgets that is a very, not necessarily a subjective thing, but it's definitely something different for everybody else. Being older now, it's okay, we're gonna get a hotel room. We're not sleeping on anybody's floor
You're not
anymore.
doing the hardcore punk moves.
Exactly.
On that floor with cat hair in your face.
Exactly. Yeah. You're not gonna be falling asleep on somebody's floor at 4 a.m. anymore. If you are,
I have a feeling
kudos
you've done
to
that
you.
before, it sounds like.
Oh yes, many times. But it's like you said, it's allotting the time. A lot of people have, regular jobs, so it's all right. Well, you got to get the time off of work. You got to try and plan life events.
Yeah.
And it's It can be a process, and it can be just a painful process.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, you just run into a streak of luck. Like the first place I got a hold of when I kind of started focusing in different towns got back to me and said, yeah, we can give you that date. And it was like, that's great. That's what fuels you. Is okay, it's a starting point. Now I can build off of this.
Where are you guys going on this one?
We're going to Youngstown, Ohio, and then Pittsburgh.
Nice.
But the original plan was, like I said, we all have jobs, so we can't go out for weeks anymore.
Sure.
But the original plan was to go to Buffalo or Rochester.
Right.
Because Nicholas kept saying how great the Buffalo scene was.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, get a hold of them. And nothing. And the idea was like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday type deal, and then just kind of do the circle and come back to Michigan.
Sure.
But everything was just kind of falling through, and nobody was not really getting back with us. And so I tried, all right, let's focus on Ohio, and at least try to go Ohio and then Pittsburgh and maybe Indiana, and then come home.
Yeah.
And we finally just had to kind of relinquish with the fact it was, okay, well, it's just going to be 2 days.
Right.
But it's 2 days that you're out of state.
It's great. No, it's a big achievement for a band, an indie band, to do that. It's
Exactly.
exciting. I mean, I get it. So let's transition to the drum talk, right?
Okay.
All you drummers love your drum talk.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
talk about your gear, what you're playing. I don't even know how to explain it, but you tell us the whole drum background of yourself.
Okay, well, I mean, I started when I was 11 in school band, and that's a great place to start. And my youngest son, is playing some, and I am trying to encourage him more.
Sure.
He doesn't really dig it that much. I'm not forcing him to, but the school he goes to, it's either that or choir.
Okay.
But I'm trying to get him to realize that going into high school, it's a good place to A, meet friends, and B, kind of get a lot of those art requirements out of the way.
And have fun, hopefully.
Exactly. But yeah, I always loved that. And, I loved marching band. I loved concert band. That was a blast. And my cousin was a drummer, my cousin Gary.
Okay.
And first time I ever played on drums was his. So I always loved that.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's 10 years older than I am. Right. So he's 60, and he's still playing in a bunch of bands in Detroit.
Awesome.
We're playing with them in May.
Great. That's great.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's something I've always enjoyed, and I'm at that age now where I like being able to go out and get some gear that I want. And the kit that I have, which is a Mapex Saturn kit, it's one that I've always wanted.
Great.
And when I found it used, I just was able to get it.
Yeah.
And that's my main kit now.
And like cymbals, what do you use for that?
Oh yeah. I use a bunch of different cymbals, mostly this company called Senton.
Okay.
That I really like their stuff. But I remember I had a friend up north who was a drummer, and I remember long ago I was all about Zildjian cymbals. Oh, I get Zildjian. Oh, yeah. And he said, well, yeah, you could do all Zildjian, or else you could actually just go out and try and find your sound.
Yeah, good
and
advice.
That's what I've always tried to live by ever since then was, yeah, certain brands are great.
Yeah.
Like I can't use Zildjian live because I break them.
You play hard, that's for sure.
Yes. But I had one for recording. Yeah. I used it on the album.
Nice.
And I loved it.
Yeah.
So for me, it was more about the process of, okay, well, I don't want to sacrifice sound totally, but I am going to have to sacrifice some because of the way I play. And I'm the type of drummer that what I'm trying to purvey in my musical style is there has to be a little bit of power. We're not a jazz band.
No.
I love jazz.
Right.
And, I'm not Elvin Jones. I can't animalize the drums while, playing with Coltrane.
Right.
But I also am not going to basically, I'm not going to overpower anything I don't need to.
Right.
There has to be that area where, okay, this is a heavier song, you got to hit the drums.
Yes.
All right, this is pulled back. There's one song that we have on the album called The Chorus, and again, tipping my hat to Jason, it's a marching snare beat.
Okay.
And I recorded it on 3 different snares, and
Really?
Jason mixed them together.
So take me through that. I haven't heard that before. So you're talking, you did a full recording, and
yeah.
you just changed the snare out, or did you isolate the snare somehow? In the
Yeah,
recording?
so what we did was we did the full run through of the song when we recorded the drums, and that was the very last thing that, I think one of the last things that we did was he had me set up in the foyer upstairs on the main level of the house, and I was right in front of the front door, and I brought 2 snares with me, and we'd record the snare part, just the snare part.
Just the snare, okay.
He had a mic on the snare, he had a mic under the snare, and then he had a mic up on the
room noise,
on the stairs in the stairwell.
Yeah.
And we did the part, and I was okay. Third snare, put that in there, record the part, and then he just mixed them all together.
That's cool. Yeah. So you obviously liked it. You
Oh,
wouldn't have.
I was nervous about it at first,
Sure.
but once you hear it, you go, oh yeah, that works.
Yeah. You knew right instantly.
Yeah.
What did you think when he said that concept though? What was
Oh,
in
I
your
loved
head?
it.
Okay.
I loved it because that was when you play in bands like we have for years. I mean, when you recorded in the studios, how many guitars did you use?
6 or 7.
Yeah. See, and back in the early days, when you're just doing the punk thing or you're doing the rock thing and you're just going in, okay, well, you're not even going to track that much. It's going to be a lot of live.
When you're a punk band, you only have one guitar.
Exactly,
okay?
yeah.
So there's no other option.
Yeah, so you're doing that and this is the sound you have. But when you're kind of in more of a studio setting, and whether it's an actual studio and they have their own equipment,
Right, that is
or
true.
if you're lucky enough to have a few different like snares or a couple of different, for the record I used 3 different snares and then a different setup of cymbals. So we recorded 11 tracks. And it was, okay, well, this group, I'm going to use this setup.
Yeah.
So,
You got a good point. You brought up about different studios. I was in a studio in Alabama a few years ago, and one of the things I loved about it that I didn't expect till I got there was all these vintage instruments they had, these amps, because I brought my guitar and my amp, and I walked in, I go, oh, wow. So this engineer invested a lot of money into gear besides the recording gear. So it gave me as a musician options to play different things. So when I was younger, it just didn't have that because I wasn't going into studios like that. It was whatever gear I had is what we played. So to have that palette of sounds was
exactly.
really wonderful.
And that was one thing that happened on the record was Jason brought in some of his equipment for Jenny and Nicholas to use. All right, we're going to try this.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, we're trying to get this sound, but let's try it with this. Or hey, let's try this pedal. Let's try this amp.
Nice.
And it was like, okay, well, you're using that bass. Let's try this bass and see what sound that we can get out of that.
Yeah.
And that was nice.
Yeah, of
and
course.
it really helped because I remember after we got done, hearing both Nicholas and Jenny tell Jason, it was, oh yeah, this piece worked the best. And oh no, you got this sound great. You were totally right. And yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So as a veteran in the industry, so give us a little advice, maybe some of the younger groups out there, artists, maybe in a local sense, right? A local scene, what they can do, how they can build their local career, maybe go on to bigger things, but maybe some tips you'd give.
For me, it was watching other music documentaries.
Okay.
Again, living up north, there wasn't much of a scene, but there was certain documentaries that I watched that I loved. Like the movie Hype, which documented Seattle scene in the 90s. There was a lot of great advice out of there, and just kind of seeing other bands talk about stuff like 1991, the year punk broke, you kind of see like a behind the scenes of Sonic Youth and Nirvana, and of course Fugazi's Instrument, and talked about, you know, their career. When you start picking out little pieces of bands that you like out of those documentaries, it gives you almost a roadmap. Like the one thing, when I first moved down here, the one thing that always drove me was there's a scene in the movie Hype where they're talking to the Super Suckers, and they said when they first moved up to Seattle, the first thing they learned was, if you want to do something, do it. Yeah. And that just resonates to this day with me. It's, if you want to do something, do it. Figure it out. Yeah. Talk to somebody. I wanted to do my own label. First person I talked to was Tom Muth of the band Red Swan, because he had his own label. Right. High Sussex, I think it was called. And I just, hey, how do you do this?
Yeah. By the way, we'll have you back for another episode with a full label discussion. That's like a whole other world.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your musicianship and your band, but you're right that you're owning a label. You got a lot of stories I want to get into about that.
Yeah. But it's that attitude of, okay, well, yeah, I wanted to do this. Well, how do I go about doing this? There was a show I was at, and I was talking to, cannot remember the guy's name or the label, but I saw that he had his merch and he was selling all the CDs of all the bands on. I was, you know, do you have a business license? How do you? I mean, what are you doing with this? And he just said, don't just start one.
Right.
You can worry about all that stuff later. And that's how I feel about bands. It's the same thing. It's, you want to be in a band, start one. Find some friends. Yeah. I love hearing about the people our age, you know, that I've known for a while. That's, oh, my kid's starting a band. Good. Yeah. Good. It's like, what are they doing? Well, they're not okay. Well, you know, tell them to get a hold of me. I'm more than willing to talk guidance with people. I was at a thing for work not that long ago at one of the high schools locally, and a kid approached me, and he was the son of our old neighbors.
Sure.
And I was talking to him about it. I said, you know, hey, you're playing drums, great. You know, have you started a band? Some of my friends are working. I'm like, good, keep going.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we're thinking about it. It's like, that's fine. Just do what you want to do. And that's what people need to remember when you're starting out as a band. It's probably not going to be that good, but when you're learning the process, you're honing your craft. You know this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's all about trying to make things that make you happy. And that's the other piece of advice that I would give is, do the music that makes you happy. Right. Play it for, you know, you and maybe some of your friends that you have the same ideas. That's great. Yeah. If it catches on with others, then you know that's great. If it doesn't, you know, still you're doing it for you.
Well, you know, being an indie rock band or indie band over the years, different bands, sometimes it's only 2 or 3 people in the crowd that are into you, and that can make your whole night.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be the whole crowd. Yeah, you'd like everybody to be into it, but sometimes you just eye a couple, 3 people, you're like, oh man, that's what I'm playing for right there.
Oh yeah, and I mean, there's a meme that goes all over social media, and it's just this band, and they got their one friend there, and it's like, I want to thank Timmy for coming tonight.
Right.
And all the musicians share this, and they say the same thing. If you haven't experienced this, then you don't know. And I think it's kind of makes you appreciate things a little bit more.
Of course.
Like if you haven't had those train wreck shows, or if you haven't done those shows where there's only 3 people, and you're like in Detroit, you're in this seedy bar, and there's 3 people, and the booker's not there,
right?
And you're talking to the bartenders like, hey, is there any gas money? And he just, I don't know what you're talking about.
Of course, there's bands playing for bands, right?
Exactly.
And you're playing to a crowd of the rest of the guys in the audience, or women, and it's all band members of other bands.
And we've all had those nights, but when you play those shows and you have just one of those 3 people come up there and go, I really liked what you guys were doing. That is,
it is
all right, we reached somebody. If you can make one convert That's what I always said about some of the other bands, like with my old band, the Jack Pine Snag.
Sure.
If we can go and make one convert someplace, all right, that's how you build it.
Yes, build it one by one.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being here today. It's been a great discussion, and I definitely want you back for the Silver Maple Kill whole record business that you have, and we'll get into more details on that. But thanks for being here, man.
Hey, thanks, Eldon. Always a pleasure, man.